Hello, and welcome back to the Nourished with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. Today's episode is all about protein. So how much do you need, where you should get it from, what you can pair it with, how to know how to track the amount of protein you're eating per day, and honestly, even just the calculation on how you know exactly how much protein you need for your specific body and your activity level. So we're going to jump into all of that today, of course, but I wanted to start with a catch up because I didn't release an episode last Wednesday. I had a little bit of an overthinking moment. I feel like anytime I tap into the conversation of medication or vaccines or surgeries, or I just feel like it's just territory that I don't know if everybody would be on the same page or the same wavelength as me, which is obviously totally fine. I don't know. I had a moment of hesitation and I'm like, if I'm hesitating, I'm not going to release it. So maybe that will be coming out in the future. But for now, we are just moving on like usual. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the podcast and being up for whatever it is that I share with you. This last week, Nate got back from London, which was so nice to have him home. He was gone for 5.5, almost 6 days. He left early on Sunday, got home very late on Friday, and he was over there for work. So I had a whole week by myself. And honestly, I do not mind being by myself. I think where I get kind of lonely is when I think about eating a meal by myself. There's just something about it. My dad had come over for supper one night because my mom wasn't home. And he's like, I'm just so glad you have Nate. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I would feel sad. Like if you had to make every meal and eat here by yourself. And I know that's the reality for a lot of people. And I think you get more comfortable with it with time. But I'm just always used to having somebody to talk to at mealtime. So I really either didn't make much food this last week because I went over to my parents' house, or then I had my dad over for supper. Or actually, my mom and I also went to Grand Island twice this last week. So it was nice to have him home on Sunday, or on Saturday and Sunday. We truly just did nothing. We laid around, and he was trying to catch up from the time switch because they are 6 hours ahead of us. And so when you come back, you're like 6 hours behind. His sleep schedule was super wonky, and I think he's doing a lot better now, but it was, Luna was so excited. Luna is our dog. If you're new on listening to the podcast, we have a mini golden doodle named Luna, but she had such sadness in her eyes all week. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but apparently she just is very dramatic because you'd look at her eyes and it was like just darkness. I'm like, girl, he is coming home. I know you absolutely adore him like I do, but he will be coming home. So on Sunday, then we made supper together, and then we watched a movie. I think it was called Time Between Us. It has, I'm going to forget what her name is, but it's basically about this guy who can time travel, and he falls in love with this girl, and he tries to kind of like manipulate his life to fall in love, and then all these things kind of unfold. It was a very mediocre movie, but it had been recommended to me, and I liked the actors in it, so that's really what we did. I read on Sunday. We got some groceries. I felt really good entering this week with having just some fresh, like I said, groceries and a clean space. I decorated for Christmas this weekend, or this last week as well. My mom and I had gone to Home Goods last week when Nate was gone, and I told him, I'm like, we should really go to Grand Island and go Christmas shopping and get some decor. And he's like, I feel like that's something that you and your mom should do. And I'm like, you know, you're playing with fire if you say that, because if I go shopping with my mom, there's so limited self-control because it's like, oh, is this cute? Yeah, that's cute. You should totally get it. And I'm like, okay, sure. Put it in the cart. I lose all sense of, do I really need this? But I am proud to say I really don't feel like I bought a single thing that I didn't want or could utilize in my home. Like everything I bought has now found a place in our house. And that feels pretty good. I didn't have too many ridiculous purchases, but we were kind of like guessing what the total was going to be. And I'm like, oh, it is not going to be that low. Like it is going to be much higher than that. And I was pretty on track with it. But when you pay with cash, it's basically like you're spending no money. This is not financial advice. But I was using tip money from the job that I work on the weekends just as a barista. And I was using, when you use tip money, it's like, well, it's cash. It's not really tracked anywhere. So like I'm basically not spending anything. And that's just girl math for you. That's how I could justify those purchases. But I'm really excited with what I got. I got some little ceramic houses that glow. I decorated the Christmas tree and got these bulbs that are Starry Bright is the brand. They're a 1940s kind of like revamped brand, I feel like. They are very nostalgic looking. And my great grandma actually gave my mom ornaments that she uses in her house that are that same brand. My great grandma's now passed away. So it's just like, my mom's like, this was such a good find. Like, you truly hit the jackpot. So I'm really excited about that. I also got these like wooden trees of all different sizes and shapes to go on our dining room table. And then I did some fairy lights, and I have some like tall candles that I'm going to have beside there. Just some fun things. It's just really fun to add some spice and some festiveness, whatever, to your home, especially in November into December. I would really love to know what kind of people you are, because I'm somebody who historically I would say I was not like a way before Thanksgiving, we're going to put up the Christmas tree and stockings type of gal. But this last year, obviously this year, I just feel so excited around Christmas. Like, I just don't even know how to explain it. I'm like, I don't feel like I've always had so much excitement and anticipation for it. But really just set up everything in my home, and I'm like, I guess we haven't even had Thanksgiving yet, and I'm already jumping to Christmas, which poor Thanksgiving kind of gets the short end of the stick sometimes. But I do just think there's something about having a home where you have very moody lighting. In the evening, you turn on the Christmas tree, and that's like when you're watching TV, you've got the glow of the tree, or when you come home, when it's dark outside so early, the tree is glowing. Like, it's just a very special thing. And I've been having a lot of fun with that this year. We also, when we went to Grand Island, my mom helped me pick up Grand Island. Also, I kind of forget that I'm talking to people that maybe are not from Nebraska. Anyway, it's just a town obviously near us that has much more than the small town that I live close to does. But we got to pick out tile for both our kitchen and then our bathroom. So our kitchen, we really just need backsplash in our kitchen, and then we're pretty much done outside of finishing the pantry until we move the house, and then we'll redo the flooring and everything else, which is like our 5 to 10 year plan. But we did pick out some ceramic tiles, and they're square, but they have kind of like an iridescent look. They're ceramic, so they look handmade. I'm sure they're not, but they look like it. And they're really just cream. Our whole kitchen is very basic and cream. I wanted to be able to decorate with different colors as I changed my style, and as just time evolves. I know I'm not always going to be really into sage green probably, or really into like the blue ceramic bowls. So anyway, I just picked something that would be very neutral. But then for our bathroom, I have a vision board, and honestly, I was able to find almost exactly what I was looking for, which was really exciting because I feel like I'm somebody who can create a vision, and I really always do have a vision for a space if I'm doing something, but finding the supplies to match what I want feels like pulling teeth. Like, it's always so difficult. So to be able to go there and be like, oh my gosh, like they have exactly what I want. It was just perfect. And so for the floor, we're going to do some sort of like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's those little subway tiles that are shaped. I don't know my shapes, but they've got like 6 sides to them. Don't judge me. I really honestly got a C in geometry, so I'm not the person to talk to you about shapes and what they're called. But anyway, we were going to do that for our floor in the bathroom. And then for the shower, there's these tall tiles. They're like vertical, and they're like this green, very like warm green type of color. I don't know. I just need to share the vibe because it's really hard to explain, obviously, with words. I'm not doing the best job. But I found exactly what I wanted, so we're going to do that in the bathroom for the shower. We're taking out the bathtub. It just needs a revamp. I've talked about the mold that is in the bathroom, and Nathan this weekend was like, we should start a GoFundMe for this bathroom. And I'm like, if we took photos of the shower and the mold in the shower, we probably would get a lot of sympathy. We will not do that, obviously. He's like, but at the same time, our bathroom looks kind of rough. I'm like, you're right, it does. But it's really not the worst of the worst to us, just being people that honestly, our house tends to be very, very clean. It's always picked up and it's almost always fairly clean, with the exception I don't vacuum every single day, but we just like to keep a tidy space. So I think we both feel like it's kind of an evasion of our cleanliness when things just cannot get clean because they've been there for 100 years. Okay, not 100 years, but our house was built in 1920. And so this bathroom, whenever they got indoor plumbing, I'm almost could guarantee it's probably the same bathtub. The previous owners, I think, tried to zhuzh it up a little and do a new shower and everything, but there is a window in the shower that has wooden trim. It makes no sense. So we've tried to flex seal it multiple times, and again, like grime and that, it just builds up and it's just gross. And so we are so ready to renovate that, and hopefully we have somebody lined up for like end of June into February. He said it shouldn't take very long because our bathroom is truly so small and we just have one in this home for right now. And that's just something we really wanted to do before the baby came, is to get the backsplash done, get our pantry done, and renovate the bathroom. Very ambitious, and I know people will say, Bailey, you don't have to have everything done before you have your child. But when you live in a constant state of a project, or when you live in a space where you see all these projects that need to be done, it's really hard not to get overwhelmed by your space because all you see is projects that need to get done. That don't take that much time, honestly. Like a bathroom remodel, we're not doing that ourselves. We can do the demo. We're very good at demo, but we do not rebuild anything. It's just not our specialty. But even like in the nursery and in our bedroom, I want to do that beadboard. Not even beadboard, you'd call it like wainscoting. It's what's in our dining room. I'm going to match a very similar pattern to do in the nursery and then do in our bedroom as well, just because it adds texture to the walls. It adds something versus feeling like you need to fill each wall with artwork or painting it a different color, because everything in our house is very neutral. Very whites, greens, blues, very warm, but we don't add a lot of decor to the walls. Honestly, with them being plaster, I've not nailed anything into our walls. Honestly, I'm looking around the room I'm sitting in. I'm like, yeah, we have nothing on the wall. And it's just because of the wall being plaster. It's just an ordeal in itself. So I'm really excited to have some of those little things done. Hopefully my dad can help me. They also blew an installation in our attic 2 weekends ago. So really just house projects happening everywhere. I don't really share a lot about that on social media or anything because it feels kind of like disconnected from what I do business-wise, but my business page is also my personal page because I do think that health and lifestyle just should merge together. And I always kind of hope to share my life and how I live a healthy, active, and just fulfilling life without feeling like my health journey always needs to start or I've gotten off track. Like it's just, you're just living life. And so I really like to show that openly and very transparently, but I don't share a lot about house projects. So I might have to share some more about that if you guys are interested. I personally love when people share house projects, even if I don't follow them for house project content. I do think it's fun just to see what people are up to, and I've been having a lot of fun with creating mood boards, so I feel like it would be fun to share what the vision was and then how things kind of turned out, kind of the process of it. When I shared more about our kitchen, I've really got a lot of interest and a lot of people asking me about what we did, who we worked with, and how we kind of designed the space. So I think obviously there are people that are interested, so I just need to share more about it. And I honestly like to share things that are kind of outside of my realm because it's just different. It's a different creative outlet for me, and I've utilized that, I feel like, recently as my creative outlet. I was talking to Nate last night about how I don't feel like I've really done anything creative recently. And that's not necessarily true because the podcast is a creative outlet in a sense. Same with writing. I've been starting to do more of that on Substack, and that's how you've been getting emails from me if you're on my email list. But at the same time, I think for me, I'm a very visual person. So when I can create something that's visually requires that creativeness, it just is very fulfilling. And because honestly, October through now has been, it's been an abundant time for me, business-wise, client-wise, and I'm so, so grateful for that. But most of my time day to day is either going into reading blood work, meeting with people for blood work consultation, meeting with people for a discovery call, or meeting with my clients that I'm working with one-on-one for my rebuild program for the last round that I've ran. And that one I had 15 people sign up for. So now I will be running a second round in December, which will be the last time I'm actually offering one-on-one coaching until June of 2025, which is absolutely crazy. And it feels, I don't know, just crazy to say that out loud because part of me is like panicking a little bit. But at the same time, I know that's what I need to do. And I've been spending the last 3 months preparing myself for when that time comes that I'm going to be taking time off. But anyway, all that to say, I just feel like my calendar is very, very full just doing the day-to-day things. And I love it and I love what I do. But at the same time, like you still, at least I believe you still need to have something for yourself outside of that. And I probably have not been the best about that and doing that actively. And so even just when baby comes in March, I was telling Nate, I would really like to start up my recipe guide that I started making actually this last summer. And it just was not the right time. I think something that I've really leaned into in this last year is actually recognizing when the time is right for something and when it's not, and not trying to force things when the time is not right. Because I've had a lot of people ask me like, hey, when's your next recipe book coming out? Like, please let me know because I want one. Or I had another gal that reached out about wanting to buy them in bulk. And I'm like, I don't even have a recipe guide created. So obviously, I'm very grateful for that, and that's amazing, but previous me would have been like, well, then let's get it done. Like, let's power through it. Let's, take photos of everything we're eating, and let's make recipes. And I think other people maybe wouldn't have noticed, but I would have noticed it felt very rushed. So I really think that's going to be the project that I try to pursue March through kind of that summer months of next year, just to have something that I can invest time into, that I'm passionate about, that does not have a set time frame of when it needs to start and when it needs to end, but really, like I said, just a very visual and creative project for me, because I have the recipes, I have the photos, I have everything. It just all needs to be put into its place and created, which last time I created a recipe book, I think I did it in 4 months, but I had over 64 recipes, over 72 pages. It was kind of ridiculous, and it was a lot of time, and I was very honestly overwhelmed that there was even interest in the recipe guide in the hard copy when I sold it. So just always kind of thinking about how I can prepare myself for the next season, especially knowing that I'm spending these next 6 months. So really September through March, I've been working with a business coach to help kind of be very strategic about how I take time off and how I transition my business to a place where I can take 3 months off and after I have our baby, and then really just ease back into things without feeling like there's a rapid stop and then start. I don't know. I just want it to be a much more of a transitional phase, and even thinking, forward for the next few years of what I want to add in. And it's just cool because I would not be able to do this if I wouldn't have created something on my own, which is not possible honestly, I was telling Nathan too last night, I'm like, if I wouldn't have had your financial and emotional support the last 3 years, this would not be a thing, because there's just a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of defeat and there's a lot of questioning yourself. And I would say for me, I think I noticed the most growth among myself in the last 3 months, because I've not felt like I needed to grasp at straws just to make ends meet, which is just the most comforting feeling. And it's just a stage that I had wanted to be in. And I think when you're in the season of, showing up at different events or trying to network with people in person or doing pop-ups and having a booth at a different networking event, all of that is fine, but it's not for me. I do not love that at all. And I was trying to fit into a mold that just, again, it was not my personality. My personality is to network through creating meaningful connections one-on-one with people, through having guests on my podcast, perhaps being a guest on somebody else's podcast. That is shown to be the most beneficial for me and my business over time. And so it's just really like a breath of fresh air to know I don't need to force myself to fit into a business owner mold, just because that's always kind of what it's looked like, in my opinion, or that's what people have told me maybe that it needed to look like. And anyway, I guess I just don't really know where I'm going with that. I think I just obviously started word vomiting. All that to say, I just feel like I'm in a very good place mentally, physically, emotionally, And I just really am grateful that it's hitting at this point in my life, because even if I think back a year ago, if it would have, if I would think, oh, we're having a kid in March, like I think there would have been a lot of panic, but I truly feel so at ease with everything. And I'm really excited for this next season of life and how I can continue to be creative throughout that season, but not have so much pressure on myself to be doing 1,000 things every single day like I historically have expected of myself. So I don't know, folks. It's just all about boundaries, and it's all about setting boundaries. And the more that I practice that and the more that I preach that, the more that I realize it is so true. And I think that's a common misconception that people have about the work that I do, is that I'm like just a nutrition focused coach, and that's all we talk about is food and eating good food and eating food for your body and eating enough protein, like what we'll talk about today. But I do so much of the stress management, setting boundaries, creating routine work with clients. I have a lot of clients right now, I feel like, that are at similar stages of life, and setting boundaries is a big one, right? Even setting boundaries of what you're expecting yourself to do every day. Like if I were to sit down at my desk every day and be like, okay, Bailey, you're going to do whatever gets thrown at you. So if you get an email, then you need to respond right away. If a client messages you, you need to respond right away. If you have blood work that pops up, that those results come in, you need to do that right away. I would feel like I'm constantly like spiraling, or I'm like not creating the momentum that I want for my business, because I'm just being controlled by my environment versus me having control over my environment. And I think that's where it gets really tricky, because I don't necessarily believe that having control is the answer, because other people struggle. Either people really struggle with setting boundaries, or maybe having too much control, or wanting control, or maybe not having enough control. And sometimes people struggle with both. And I would say I've definitely have struggled with both in the past. But just having a set routine, having a set schedule, setting boundaries with people where you can tell them, like, on this day, I will reach out to you about finances, but until Friday at noon, you will not hear from me. And I think when we're able to just make that very clear, we also recognize that people don't really care. Like, they're not going to be upset if you set boundaries, if you communicate them effectively, and if it's somebody obviously that you trust to share these boundaries with. But more often than not, when I've told clients like, okay, what does your week look like? What's an area that we could set some boundaries? And truly, through talking through this with clients, I have evolved so much in how I run a business and how I even just handle relationships, or how I book my calendar. It has just made such a huge difference. So I really think that the more that I talk about boundaries, the more that I talk about how, or I even reflect on how different the last 3 months have looked like for me, setting boundaries has been a primary focus. And truly, my lifestyle and everything around it has seemed to fall into place so much better than when I was just like running around with my head cut off. And although there are always going to be things that maybe we lack in different seasons, so like I shared, I feel like I've lacked the creative outlet. For me, it's been decorating different things in our home and planning different renovations and those types of things, which yes, those do fill my cup, but I don't know, not to the level that I probably would want them to be. So it's nice to know in different seasons you're going to have things that maybe get neglected. That doesn't mean that they'll be neglected forever. And to me, I just think that's really comforting to be able to look, kind of zoom out on your life and look at it more so in the span of like quarters versus looking at it every day to day or week to week, because that gets very overwhelming. And I think life feels like it's going so fast when we are just trying to survive day to day rather than taking a big picture approach. Well, now that I've rambled your ear off, we should jump into the segment of how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. How I would say I'm nourishing both my mind and body is finding pockets in my day where I can move my body, because I know that it'll make me a more present person when it comes to spending time with other people. So for example, like today, I have client calls from I have 11:30 to 12, and then I have a 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And I know when I woke up this morning, I just did not want to get out of bed. It was probably around 7:45 when I finally got out of bed, just because this was my one morning one of my 2 mornings in the week that I actually can sleep in. And so I was like, I'm going to just let myself rest a little bit more. I'm not going to force myself to get up because my alarm went off at 6:30 to go and work out. I'm like, Bailey, you worked out 3 times leading exercise class yesterday. You'll do the exact same thing tomorrow. It is okay for you to sleep. And really just being totally fine with that. But I do have a break then from that 12 to 2. And so I'm going to fill that time both with eating lunch, but then obviously also moving my body in some way. It'll probably look like a walk, doing some pelvic floor stretches and exercises, and that'll be it. And I think that has been really good for me because when I then have to sit at a desk for 3 hours on client calls, not have to, but get to, I am able to be much more present because I've actively moved my body. There's just something about physically moving your body that clears your mind and just creates so much clarity around what you need to talk to these clients about, or what I need to talk to them about, or how I want to handle the call, how I even approach the call. Something that I don't always share, but like I'm somebody who does get very, I would say, anxious when it comes time to get on calls with people, not because I don't love what I do, not because I don't love the people I work with, but just because I know that there is a level of responsibility that I have over this person's health, and that is something I just don't take lightly. So I think sometimes I work myself up over it a little bit more than I really need to. And I've been doing this for 3 years. So it's like at this point, I'm like, Bailey, why is this what you do? But it's just, I've realized it's just who I am. Even before I hang out with friends that I know really, really well, like I will get a little anxious about it because I'm like, I have always felt that I have to carry on every conversation when I enter a room, which I do think isn't a bad thing, but it also creates a lot of unnecessary pressure. Like my husband is somebody who could sit with someone in silence for hours and he would be totally comfortable. And that's just not me. Like I like to fill silence because I don't like to just sit in silence, which is something in itself that I need to probably work through on my own. But it does help before I get on a call. If I'm like moving my body, if I'm active, if I'm doing things around the house, and then I get on a call, I notice I feel much more relaxed entering into that conversation, and honestly just a lot more focused entering into that conversation because I've taken care of myself. So then how I am nourishing my spirit is I've started to read through Proverbs. I don't know why it kind of hit me. I feel like it was like post-election. I'm like, I just need to open up the Bible and just start reading it again. I was doing a devotional for a long time and I made my way through that a couple weeks ago. So now I try to spend about 15 minutes a morning reading my Bible, just working through different books of the Bible. I started earlier this year, honestly, probably January 1st, with reading from the New Testament on. And then I started reading a devotional, and I'm like, I just want to open the Bible and read what kind of like stands out to me. And so for me, that's been this book of the Bible, reading through Proverbs, and then I don't know, we'll just see where it takes me. I feel like in the new year, something that I would really like to prioritize is working my way through the Bible. There is this book, I don't know what it's called, but it has the Bible written more of like a story. So it's not necessarily like you start in the Old Testament, work your way all the way through. I also feel like the reading plans for reading the Bible in a year also don't have you start at the beginning and work all the way through. So I'm thinking I might get that book so I can read it more like a story, and it will take me kind of bounced around to different parts of the Bible just very naturally because it's just written in a book format. So that's something that I'm definitely considering this new year just because I do want that to continue to be a priority for me. And I notice a really big difference in my emotional and spiritual health when I actively sit and read my Bible every morning. All right, so I think we should get into the bulk of today's episode. Again, we are talking about protein, and I wanted to start first by just giving you the calculation for knowing how much protein you need specifically. This is not a very, calculated calculation. Like there's just 2 things that we're going to we're going to analyze, and then you will get the amount of grams you should have per day. So this is what I use with clients because I think it's just a simple way. We're not trying to overcomplicate it too much based off of like your weight or your gender, which I'm sure there are calculations out there. But how I do this is based off of your activity level. We track how much protein you need to be eating that day. So if you're somebody that doesn't really work out, you don't exercise too much outside of maybe going outside for a walk, you are going to use the calculation of 0.6 times your body weight in pounds. That will give you the amount of grams of protein you should have per day. If you are somebody who's moderately active, so you're working out maybe 2 to 3 times a week, you will use 0.8 times your weight in pounds. That'll again give you the grams that you need of protein. Then if you're somebody who is working out 5 times a week, 4 to 5 times a week, maybe 6 times a week, you will use the calculation 1 times your body weight in pounds to get you that grams of protein. And then if you think about yourself and you're maybe a college athlete, you do 2-a-days, or you're just a very active person, you will use either 1.2 up to 1.4 times your body weight in pounds to get you that grams. Now, like I said, that is just a very basic protein calculation and protein calculation amount. So where I often see people get stumped is they're like, how do I know how much protein I'm getting if I don't track my calories or track my protein intake? I will say what I have clients do if they don't have a lot of maybe awareness around how many grams of protein are in something, I will have them track for 1 to 2 weeks just so we can get a baseline idea of how much protein they're consuming, also how many calories they're consuming, just because I do think that that does play a huge role. As somebody who actively tracked my calories and not even protein, all I cared about was calories, for 2 years, I have more of a probably unhealthy, not even unhealthy because it's not something I struggle with at all anymore, but I do know how much protein is in most things or how many calories are in most things, just because, like I said, historically I've tracked food and I didn't have the best relationship with it. So if you're somebody who struggles with your relationship with food and tracking is not the healthiest thing for you, I totally understand that. So that's where I think sometimes measurements can be helpful too. So if you think about having 1 cup, and this is where when you're cooking, or I'll tell clients, like if you're making some tacos and okay, I want to get around 20 grams of protein just in my primary protein source, which is going to be the ground beef with taco seasoning, you use a 1 cup measuring cup, and you can divvy that between 1 taco or 2 tacos or a taco salad. And that 1 cup of protein is giving you roughly 20 grams of protein. Okay, and then if you think too, maybe you're out at a restaurant and you can't physically measure something in a cup, you look at your palm. Your palm is roughly 4 ounces. I say roughly because we are all obviously different size hands, and men and women's palms are going to be different size. But knowing, as a female we all probably have very similar hand size. My palm is roughly 4 ounces. I know that. Men might be more of like the 6 ounces is their palm size. And then when you think about 1 ounce, so if you go to a restaurant and it's like, oh, you can get a 4-ounce steak, 1 ounce is 7 grams of protein. So a 4-ounce steak is going to be 28 grams of protein. So I think those are very helpful tools if you don't track. I really, again, would recommend utilizing pen and paper for a week, or even the notes app in your phone, and just getting a general idea of like, okay, I had 2 tacos and I used a measuring cup, so I knew I had 20 grams of protein in that meal. Plus, obviously, there's going to be there's going to be protein that comes in like through the tortilla or through beans or lentils. And so, yes, you kind of want to know that, but I usually always primarily track what was my primary protein source here. So if I have a steak, but then I have a piece of sourdough on the side, well, I know that my steak is going to be probably, like I said, that 28 grams of protein. And then I know a slice of sourdough is actually, I believe what I saw was 6 grams of protein. I'm like, okay, so the sourdough is not my primary source of protein, nor do I recommend that being anybody's primary source. The meat source for me is my primary protein source. So with that being that 28 grams of protein, having an additional 6, I'm in that 30 roughly 35 gram of protein range. So when you also do that calculation and you know how many grams of protein you need per day, so like I said, doing that, 0.8 times your body weight in pounds gives you that gram amount. I will also then have clients take that gram amount and divide it by 4, knowing that breakfast, lunch, supper, and a snack, that's kind of the protein goal you should be hitting each time. And again, this is going to change based off of your body weight and based off your activity level, but just to help you out of knowing, okay, I need 120 grams of protein today. How do I even go about figuring out how many that is per meal? Divide it by the amount of meals you're eating. So I typically recommend 4, like I said, just making sure we're utilizing a snack or even a protein shake after you work out, things like that make it a little bit easier to hit that goal. And obviously it takes that bigger number and breaks it down so it doesn't seem quite as overwhelming. Okay, so then what source of protein is best? If you are vegan, I'm going to be honest, this probably is not going to be what you want to hear, and I can't really, not saying I can't help you in forms of vegan protein, but I do really believe that whole food forms of protein are best versus protein powders, granola bars, etc. The reason that I do believe in whole food forms of protein, so animal sourced protein primarily, in addition to beans or lentils, because those are also great options, but I really think that when we try to get so much of our protein from powders or granola bars, most of those do contain soy, and so soy does have an impact on your hormones. Soy can increase estrogen, so especially with men, I would say that most men do not want to have an increase in estrogen, right? Because they should be dominant in testosterone. Same with women. If you have an increase in estrogen, that can also cause certain things like breast cancer. And so we just have to be aware of how much soy we are consuming. That's not to say that to freak you out, but if you're like somebody who wakes up and you have a Quest protein coffee, and then for lunch you have a Quest granola bar. Quest I use as a brand because I really hate that brand so much. That's the lowest quality thing that you can, one of the lowest quality protein heavy brands that you can purchase. But then maybe your only full meal of the day is having a steak or a burger for supper or a chicken breast with veggies and rice. You're not really doing your body a service by, you're eating and consuming technically on pen and paper enough protein, but your protein sources are not quality. And so that's where you have to just be aware of like what is in the protein beverage that you're consuming, what kind of protein powder are they using? Are they using any weird sweeteners or artificial flavors or artificial colors or natural flavors, which are not natural? They're just based off of a natural food. I've talked about that before. And so it's just being aware of like, how much does my body have to sort through to actually like digest the protein that I'm consuming? So if you think about going to is it GNC, the big weightlifter hub where nothing in there is regulated, they could truly be putting anything in your protein powder or in your energy drink or in your pre-workout and they don't have to tell you. There is very few regulations there. And I'm not saying that everything that the FDA approves I think is gospel, because I drink raw milk and that is very anti what they believe in. And so I'm not saying that everything that the FDA approves of, I'm like, yes, 100% agree or don't agree. But when there are very few regulations around things like energy drinks, that's where I get really concerned, or even protein powders that taste like raspberry cheesecake. Like I know that's appealing and I know that might look really enticing, but it's really just not serving your body well. Again, there's a lot of funk, a lot of inflammatory ingredients in those products, a lot of things that they don't even have to list on the label that could be in that product. So it is important that you know what is in your food. It's important that you know, especially if you're in the weightlifting community, you should be aware of what's inflammatory, because I see a lot of that community, and this is making a very generalized statement, but pushing like the Quest tortilla chips or the Quest protein bars, or doing that, what's the brand? Like I said, it's that coffee. I think it was the Premier Protein. Putting a Premier Protein shake in your morning coffee, like that is not a good brand. and that is a brand that is inflammatory. If you look at the back of the ingredients or at the ingredients, there are so many ingredients in that. Even the Fairlife protein shake, they have like a Core Power protein shake that's individually packaged. I don't even like that. Like there's still too many ingredients in that product. And at some point we have to stop being so obsessed with just protein, and actually paying attention to the quality of the protein we're consuming, because it's also going to make you feel different. Like I could sip on a protein coffee all morning and then be like starving for food at 10 a.m. because it just does not do much for me. Like that is not really filling my body or making me feel full and satisfied like the role of protein should. Also, if it has a lot of sugar in it, it's going to spike your insulin, which is not necessarily what you want. You do not want any spikes because that's going to raise blood sugar levels, whereas protein should truly be a stabilizer. So when we think about protein powders, something I also want you to think about is if it's whey, pea protein, or bovine gelatin, what is the protein source that you're getting? If it is whey protein, there are high quality whey protein brands out there. If you're going to Walmart to get a protein powder or a typical grocery store, I'm going to say you're probably not getting the most high quality protein powder you can. Even if it's called Gold Standard, which I do really like their chocolate protein powder from Walmart, tastes really good and it doesn't make me feel gross, but I know that the ingredients just really are not top tier, and so I've transitioned to a different one since that one. But whey protein is made out of dairy products or dairy byproducts, so typically it's not always the best quality, like I said, and it will impact your gut health if you have a dairy intolerance. Speaking as somebody who is lactose intolerant that does add in some raw dairy, I can speak from firsthand experience. I have fallen for this. I had no idea that whey protein was dairy based or contained milk. It was so foreign to me. And I think sometimes as people who have a dairy intolerance, we like to think, oh, well, it doesn't say that it has milk in it or it's cooked, so the butter won't affect me. It does still affect you, and whey protein is definitely something that will still affect you, even if it's blended into a protein shake and it's not like a straight up glass of milk. So finding a quality whey protein is going to be best if you can. Your body will absorb whey protein better than it will pea protein, because with pea protein, your body is not getting the essential amino acids from pea protein powder than it would if it was animal based. So although pea protein can be a lot easier on your digestive system, not as much of that protein is actually being absorbed and utilized in your body. And this is especially prevalent if you are utilizing pea protein after you work out. I'm a pea protein stan. Like I used to tell clients that they should just do pea protein. I personally, if I was to buy protein powder, I thought there were only two options, either whey or pea protein. And so I would always go for pea protein because I didn't want the lactose or the dairy. And I was very unaware that my body wasn't actually utilizing as much of that protein powder because it didn't have those essential amino acids. And so just things to think about or to look at. If you are lactose intolerant or whey protein maybe makes your stomach hurt, which I have heard from so many people, even my brother, he is very big on his protein kick, but I've recently got him on it's called Be Well by Kelly, but it is a beef protein isolate versus a whey or pea protein. And so he was like, my stomach does not feel gross or bloated after I eat this protein. And I'm like, I'm so happy to hear that. And I've honestly noticed the same for myself by making that switch, is that I don't feel gross after consuming that. And I think that's where, again, whole food forms, when you're actually chewing the chicken, the beef, the salmon, the tuna, the sardines, your body is producing enzymes to break that down because stomach acid production is being increased. When we just drink all of our protein, we typically don't feel super great. So I do really like the use of the bovine protein isolate or beef protein isolate. Bovine gelatin is also a really great source. I've posted gut gummy recipes in the past. Bovine gelatin is also super high in collagen, so it can be great for your hair, skin, nails, joints, increasing, or not even increasing, but preventing cartilage breakdown. So just things like that those protein powders can be utilized and be very effective. Also, I know Paleo Valley has a really good bone beef protein powder, or bone broth, sorry, not bone beef, bone broth protein powder, which would be made out of obviously probably a dehydrated bone broth that they've then made into a powder. My friend Emily I have two friends, Emily. My one friend Emily got me on the Be Well by Kelly brand, and my other friend Emily had said that she gets the chocolate bone broth protein powder by Paleo Valley, and it makes the best hot chocolate. So just ways that you could not feel like you need to add in a protein shake every day, but maybe even just make yourself a hot chocolate in the evening, and it would be super high in, like I said, collagen and protein and nutrients and minerals that your body really would utilize versus just making a pea protein or a whey protein shake, which just won't always make you feel your best. But I am also always open to hearing about different brands. Those are two that I like, know, and trust because people that I trust have told me about them, and I've had a chance to try one of them. But if you have brands, even if it's a whey protein, I know Equipped Nutrition also has a good one. But if you have a brand that you really like, please share that with me because I'm always open to finding new resources or trying new protein powders. I think flavor is something also that drives me crazy. There is one that's very, very simple, and I don't remember the brand, but it was very popular probably about 6 months ago. So I ordered it, and it just tastes gross to me. It's just powdery. Again, it's a pea protein with a bunch of added nutrients and minerals and vitamins into it. It just doesn't do much for me flavor-wise. So finding a good tasting and a non-bloat protein powder can be really difficult. So please send those my way if you have found one. Okay, and then getting away from the protein powders, the protein bars, protein shakes, when we think about whole food protein, I also wanted to touch on what you're looking for when you buy beef, chicken, turkey, and seafood. So when we buy beef, we buy a local cow. So we trust the people raising the animal, and then we trust the processing of the animal itself. We do buy conventional beef. I do not have an issue with it. I think when you're able to buy local and you know the farmer, you know the person raising the animal, I have no issue with conventional beef. I think that it gets a bad rap, and living in Nebraska, we are one of the hubs of having high quality beef. We are the beef state. And so I really do like to utilize conventional beef because I trust a lot of the people who raise those animals, like I said, and then we then butcher them. So we have a whole freezer full of beef. However, if I was to go to Walmart and that was the only place that I was getting my meat, I would probably tend to lean more towards getting a grass-fed and finished cut of meat or ground beef. And I say that because places like Walmart or Sam's Club or Costco, that animal is coming from all over. It could be multiple cows ground up into the same package of beef. And I just prefer to know that they were raised on a smaller scale. Not saying that grass-fed and finished is tried and true, that every practice there is perfect. But I do just like and appreciate that it's typically the smaller company in the grocery store. Even when we buy chicken, I think local is best. We raise our own meat chickens. We have them in our freezer and we sell them locally as well. That is going to be the best quality in my opinion because we raised them. We know what we fed them. We know how active they were able to be. We know what they drank. Obviously, they were getting fresh water every day. We know how we butchered them and what that practice looked like. So to me, I'm not certified to label it as anything, but I always think local is best. If we can't buy local, then I will look on the package to get something antibiotic free, pasture raised. I've noticed a significant difference. We buy this, it's the more expensive kind of chicken at Walmart if we buy chicken at Walmart. But one week we did a Walmart pickup and we got Tyson chicken instead, not to name drop Tyson, but Nathan found a bone in his chicken tender that was just not breaded chicken tenders, but raw chicken tender that I had cooked. He found a bone in it. And I'm like, that's just so disgusting. And we've never had that experience when we buy, like I said, the antibiotic-free pasture-raised chicken that comes in more of a blue and green package. I do think sometimes the package or the label tries to make it look like it is just a small family farm that carefully tends to all their animals, and that's why they charge you so much for meat. And I think that's where I see conventional beef get a bad rap, because if you're only buying it from Walmart, you're right, that's not going to be high quality beef in my experience. If you're going to your local meat shop and that's where you're getting all your protein, I think that you can go conventional and find really great cuts of meat. Again, that is all we buy. We don't buy grass-fed and finished because we get all of our beef locally. So I think it just depends on the scale of production and where you're resourcing it from. I really want to have somebody on, and I have names. I just have been horrible about reaching out to people to talk about conventional beef, because there are people, and I've had clients that are very passionate about it, and I would love to give them a platform to talk about it, because conventional meat gets a really bad rap, especially in the holistic health space. So I really just want to affirm that you do not solely need to buy that, but rather focus on quality. So think about where you're supplying your meat source, and honestly kind of doing some of the research on your own. I'm not here to tell you exactly what you need to buy when it comes to meat, because protein count is protein count, but I think how your body absorbs and digests is going to be impacted based off of the quality and really how that animal was fed and treated. So I remember when I would go in college, I was looking for the cheapest thing always, because groceries were at that point, I thought, expensive for one person, and now they're twice that much. But when I even went to Trader Joe's and I got some grilled chicken that was already cooked versus when I'd go to the grocery store and I would get Purdue chicken that was already cooked, the difference was so significant. The Trader Joe's stuff was so disgusting. Like, it had so much gnurple-y grossness and fat, versus even just getting, like I said, conventionally raised chicken from the grocery store versus the Trader Joe's kind. So do your own digging, like find what you think and what you would trust as a quality source. I always thought Tyson was a quality source until we started buying this different brand of chicken at Walmart. Because when you have whole chickens, yes, we raise them, but they're just kind of a pain to cut up. And so we do buy just chicken tenders at the grocery store. But that compared to Tyson was a significant difference in taste. And also, we've never found anything weird in the other chicken. Whereas, like I said, Nate found a bone in his. So that was just kind of gross. When it comes to turkey, again, similar to chicken. And then when it comes to seafood, I typically will get tuna or salmon. Salmon is something I will really only buy from like a Whole Foods and natural grocers, or honestly, those are about the two options. Living in the Midwest, we are just not in a great area to get quality salmon. And so I don't really do a lot of fish because we're just not in a good area to get quality fish. But if I do salmon, it will be from a grocery store that is not Walmart, because that salmon is like very bait. I don't even know what the color is. It doesn't look quality. Trader Joe's salmon has been pretty decent in the past as well. But if you live in an area where you have access to seafood, that is a great source of protein and healthy fats. Definitely utilize that to your advantage. Again, local, in my opinion, is always best if you know the farmer or the person who has harvested that. It really, in my opinion, just is uncomparable. And then if you need to, like for me, where we live, I outsource to like a Whole Foods, natural grocers, maybe Trader Joe's, if we're going to have fish, just because it can be hard to find that quality. So also canned can be a good option if you're not sure about the quality of fresh fish. Buying something canned can be a good choice too. Okay, so then how do you pair protein to increase the absorption of it in your body? There's a historical practice called digestive bitters, or increasing digestive enzymes before your meal through acidic foods, that I feel like we've kind of gotten away from. And really, if you have good gut health, and even with blood work, if it shows good enzyme production, good stomach acid, this isn't necessarily something that I think you need to be super, particular about. But you want to increase the acidic foods that you're consuming before a meal if you want to really absorb the protein to the ultimate level that you can. So like lemon water is a good option if you're out at a restaurant. Or again, you can buy digestive bitters. There is one from Organic Olivia that I typically recommend to clients. You put that in some water or underneath your tongue about 15 minutes before the meal. But also thinking about vitamin C, which would be technically in a lot of the acidic foods. Vitamin C is needed to absorb iron in your body. So that's, again, where those digestive bitters or enzymes can be really helpful if you're doing a lot of beef or chicken, beef liver. Also, when you have protein, I just want to remind you that gas and bloating or other stomach issues should not really ever occur after eating protein unless you have compromised gallbladder health or you've had that removed, because your stomach and your pancreas have those proteases that will break down the amino acids in your protein so that your body can fully absorb them. So if you're noticing that you have a lot of bloating or stomach issues, I really would question if you're actually chewing the protein source enough. Thinking about a steak, like how many chews are you taking with that steak? Rather than having like 4 chews and then swallowing it down almost whole, think about, can you increase that from 10 to 15 chews per bite? And that's something my family has always eaten really quickly. That's just how we are. I think honestly I'd blame my dad for a lot of that, just because as a farmer he was in the house to eat and then would be outside working again. So we all just kind of picked up to his pace. My husband also eats really fast, probably because I also eat really fast. So something I'm always actively trying to work on is slowing down when I eat. And okay, there is nothing that I love more than spreading some beef fat on my face. Okay, that might not be entirely true, but I do love that. And the brand that makes that so easy is Kalos. Kalos Company is a company that I have honestly followed for the last year and a half and truly fallen in love with their products. I currently use their facial cleansing oil as well as their tallow face lotion. It leaves my skin feeling so hydrated and glowy. If you've never made the switch to a cleansing oil, I'm telling you, you are missing out. It is a way to take off your makeup without dehydrating your skin or having to scrub it super intensely to get all the makeup and grime off from the day. I'm honestly just about to order their Hydra Face Tonic because especially in winter, I notice my skin, it just gets really, really dry. Even when I'm doing all the things I would normally do in the summer, the winters in the Midwest are truly just brutal. So with that, I'm going to be using my code Nourish15 to get 15% off my order, and I would encourage you to do the same if you've been looking to make the switch to a cleansing oil, tallow products, or honestly any skin or body care. I recommend these products to a lot of clients that struggle with eczema, hives, rashes, acne. They really do work wonders, and I have 100% trust in the quality of the ingredients in this brand. So if you're interested in getting more face nourishing, creamy, rich, glowy skin, go ahead and use my code Nourish15 for 15% off your order. All of this will be linked in the description of today's episode as well to make shopping super easy. Really just chewing the food that you're eating. Another thing that you can do as a form of a digestive bitter would be 2 to 4 ounces of apple cider vinegar before a meal. Or like I said, you can do half the juice of a lemon and about 4 ounces of water for that condensed version. Or if you go out for a meal, you could ask for lemon water. Also, how you can pair protein to absorb it the best is going to be adding in high fiber foods. This is where I really don't agree with a traditional keto diet, not keto as in you buy any packaged food that says keto, but truly keto, very, very high protein, low sugar in the form of fruit, and kind of minimal vegetable. I really do think that vegetables play a very big role when it comes to eating protein because, and this is part of the core 4, which if you don't know what that is, go back and listen. This was probably about 6 months ago at this point. I recorded an episode on each part of the core 4, but one of that was fresh or frozen fruits or vegetables. Cooked vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, spinach, peppers, they can really prevent the constipation that can come if you don't consume them with protein. If you know somebody who eats an abundance of protein, so think about maybe your boyfriend or your husband or your brother that is like really pushing the protein at this point because they're trying to like increase muscle mass, all the things. If they are very gassy, that is not normal. Having stomach issues like that is not normal, like I said. So they probably need to be increasing the amount of fiber that's in their meal. Like I said, very high fiber. For me, I typically gravitate towards broccoli to have with some sort of beef protein source or chicken, just because I really do feel a lot better if I have that as part of my meal. Lastly, here is starchy carbs, which are another part of the core 4. So this would be your rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, sourdough bread, sourdough pasta, quinoa, red lentil pasta, chickpea pasta. Anything that is made really from a flour and a water created this product, or like potatoes would be a natural high starchy carb, but nothing really was modified there. Rice, again, same way. But this really can then help with the release of insulin in your body. So this is going to then help your muscles then absorb the amino acids that are being broken down by your stomach and your pancreas. So we think protein has amino acids. What breaks that down? Stomach and pancreas. But then what you want to do is absorb those so that your muscles can utilize the protein that you're consuming. And that happens by having that spike in insulin. So your body really does need the energy, especially if you are actively exercising or if this is a post-workout meal and your focus is muscle gain, because you want your muscles to be absorbing as much as they can of that protein before it goes out through your body as waste. Okay, so some quick tips as we kind of wrap this up to reduce bloating: pair protein with healthy fats, acidic foods, fiber, and starchy carbs. Really, really easy if you truly just focus on the core 4 and implement that actively. Other takeaway: to calculate the amount of protein you need, figure out what that gram goal is based off of how active you are, how much you weigh. Get that grams goal and divide it by 4 so you know how much protein you need in 4 meals throughout the day to reach your daily protein goal. Another piece of this: chew your food. Like I said, that 10 to 15 chews per bite, especially when it comes to protein, is going to increase the enzyme production within your digestive system. Enzymes are responsible for helping break down food along with stomach acid. So this helps with digestion, and it also regulates the pH levels to really increase them in your gut to increase acidity that then helps with effectiveness of breaking down food. Okay, so the whole system, do you really need to know any of that? No. Did I explain that perfectly? Probably not. Just know that chewing your food is very important, especially because if you can get a lot of that food broken down through utilizing your teeth and your jaw, you do have some physique benefits that can come from eating red meat and eating things that require you to chew a little bit more. You'll notice a different jaw structure. But also as it goes throughout your system, you just want to make sure that that food does not have to fully be broken down by stomach acid alone, because it's going to take a long time. You'll probably notice feelings of discomfort or bloating after you eat. Lastly, I don't really believe that we all need to become so obsessive over protein intake. I think there are some signs where you know, okay, I need to maybe be increasing protein because when I got pregnant, one of the first things that I started taking was 2 Brazil nuts per day. Not only did this help so much with nausea and fatigue and headaches that I experienced, but I honestly just never get sick. The reason that this works is because Brazil nuts are full of selenium. Selenium increases the white blood cell count in your body so it can fight off infections, exposure, bacteria, fungus, and because, like I've shared on previous episodes, we are living in a home with some mold exposure in our bathroom, I want to be doing everything that I can to support my system and support my body. I actually always recommend Brazil nuts to clients who have any sort of thyroid function issues. So if they have hypothyroid, that is your body's inability to make T4 into T3, the active form of the thyroid hormone. What can help actually boost that is selenium. So for any client that comes to me when they say they have hypothyroid or Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I'm like, yep, let's take a couple of Brazil nuts just to help your body and your thyroid function. So of course there are so many benefits and so many reasons why I would recommend Brazil nuts, but there is only one place that I would recommend getting them, and that is Wildly Organic. I order my Brazil nuts from them probably every 4 months because they really just do last a long time. It's really nice because you can buy them in bulk, so you don't have to place a ton of orders. Or like I noticed before I actually discovered Wildly Organic was that I was just driving all over the place trying to find Brazil nuts, which you cannot get at your local Hy-Vee and Walmart, or at least you can't around here. So when I order Brazil nuts, I always use my code Bailey10 to get 10% off my order, and of course would encourage you to do the same because who doesn't love saving a little money? So next time you need Brazil nuts or any household staple items, I could almost guarantee that Wildly Organic carries it. Pumpkin seeds, goji berries, dates, all things that I've definitely gotten from there in the past and will continue to reorder. So if you're interested in getting any Brazil nuts or just household staple pantry items, then Wildly Organic is the place to go. You can find all the details linked in the description of today's episode. you're having a lot of cravings throughout the day, or you notice you are really irritated or have headaches, or you're in the gym a lot and you're not gaining muscle like you think you should, I think those are going to be symptoms where it's like, yeah, maybe focusing on protein is very important. Because, obviously it's important for everyone, but I think as we get older, maybe becomes less of an emphasis just because we're typically going to be less active. There's really this culture that's become very obsessed over protein count and protein amount. And although I think there are a lot of benefits that come from that, it's also, if it's doing more harm than good by stressing out over how much protein you're getting per day, then honestly, it's just really, in my opinion, not worth it. We need to first identify what your relationship with food is, what your relationship with tracking food is, and evaluate what method is going to work best for you so that you are getting enough to not feel like you have all these cravings, very intense, probably sweet cravings throughout the day, so that you don't feel jittery or have those headaches or negative symptoms that come from not having enough protein, but that it also is at a level that feels comfortable for you, which is just where individual one-on-one support comes in. If that's something that you think you maybe need or you have any interest in, of course, you can always reach out to me. But I really think when it comes down to it, we just have to stop overcomplicating it so much and recognizing why we're actually increasing protein versus just doing it because you've seen everybody else talk about protein. It's really important that you also know the symptoms that you're wanting to improve, which I would say most can probably be reduced significantly by emphasizing protein, but that is not the only piece to the puzzle. So like I said, your individual, your bio-individuality, your individual story, your health history is all going to play a role into this. And honestly, sometimes people just work best with other people to get the support in this area. I would say, especially if you don't have a gallbladder or large intestine, just there are physiological things that will impact how your body's able to digest that are way outside of what I've talked about today that will require individualized support. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you for today. Thank you for this podcast and the ability to connect with so many women, just all around the world. It's just been such a blessing for me, and I'm so grateful for whoever's listening to today's episode. I just ask that they leave today's episode feeling encouraged and inspired as always, and ready to move forward pursuing a different area of their health, or maybe just emphasizing a different area that has stood out to them on today's episode. I also pray for NM and any career confusion or anxiety that she's experiencing right now, and that just kind of resolves itself, and that she trusts in you in the bigger picture, in the bigger plan that you have for her life, even when it feels really difficult to do, and maybe even really difficult to give up that control. I also pray for MF and her brother and just protection and guidance over him and whatever he's going through, and that he finds some security in you, and again, just what plan you've mapped out for him and the decisions that he is making, that they just honor you. Finally, I pray for NN and that they are just blessed with a home that is in their price range this next month, or whatever the timing is that you have for them, that they find a place that they can really just make home and feel comfortable and safe and secure in, and really then just honor you through how they utilize that space. Again, thank you for today. Thank you for the changing of seasons, and just for sending your son to die on the cross for us, and forgive us for the sins that we have committed. And I just ask for continued guidance over all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram. I'm definitely the most active on there. Otherwise, Bailey Seaton on almost anything else. And if you're interested in reaching out to me, my email and all the links will be down in the description of today's episode. So with that, I'll talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.